This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we are world leaders trying to create energy that we can then be prosperous off. Are we going to build oil rigs which give us a lot of energy but then pollute a lot? Or are we going to go with the green energy that doesn't give us as much energy but is pretty clean? Today we're looking at a sequel to a game I love, Manhattan Project Energy Empire. This is for 1 to 5 players, takes 1 to 2 hours to play. Let me show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. Manhattan Project Energy Empire is a worker placement game where you'll be placing workers or recovering all your workers and mixing different resources to do different things to score points. Everyone gets a player board where they'll hold their workers, the energy that they'll be using for that round. They'll also be tracking how much pollution they do over the course of the game. They'll be keeping all their resources here and some long-term achievements as well. They'll also be taking dice and putting them here over the course of the game. At the beginning of the game, they each get 2 nations that they get to choose from. From those 2 nations, they will keep one and keep it face up. They'll get some starting goods or dice from that place, and they'll have this card that they can actually activate later. Whichever one they pick, they take the other one and they flip it down, and this becomes their player aid, and everyone takes their starting resources. So in this case, I would take $2, I would take the yellow die, and I would take a science for my start. Now here you see a bunch of different spots with the worker. That's where you can place some of your workers. On your turn, you're going to place a work on this main board, carry out an action, and then possibly activate structures on your own board. Now this whole section over here, the green cards, are called the government market. And so let's say I place a worker here. I go here and I can take what's here. For example, I can take a science and I get to peek at a global impact card that will be coming up later. I can basically see a little bit into the future. We'll go over that later. But essentially anytime you go here, you basically get to do something. Anytime there's an arrow, like here I could pay 3 coins to get an extra worker, but I'll take some pollution. Here I could spend science to clear up some pollution. Or I could go here to buy any one of these 3 cards. At the top is the cost, $2 or a science, $3 or a science, $4 or 2 science. Once one of these are bought, let's say I paid $2 or a science, I would take this and place it in front of my board. These would all just slide down. Things slide to the left and a new building comes out because this one is the most expensive, and that's sort of how those things recycle. Now at the top of these, some of these actually cause pollution to happen in certain aspects of your board. Now, as I mentioned, some of these make you get pollution in certain aspects of your board, and that sort of gets taken from this track here. This track not only tells you what the trade market is on barrels of oil, $1 all the way up to $5, buy or sell for barrels of oil, or you can take pollution from here, and this is sort of a clock for the game. And when you take pollution, you're taking it from the leftmost, and once these empty, certain things will happen. Now, the card I bought didn't have any pollution. It's going to get me points at the end of the game, and also, because I actually placed a worker in the government section of the board, and that government section is any of the 4 spots here where it's green. This is the industry market, and this is the commerce market. If you go to one of the spots in that market, you can activate structures of that type on your board. So in this case, I went here so I could activate one of those green buildings. Now this says that I can place a worker or an energy here to activate this, and I can activate as many of these as I want on my turn, assuming I have the resources for it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some cards actually put pollution. This one says, hey, you grab a pollution from that pollution tracker and place it anywhere on the sky. This one says place a nuclear one on the sky. So what happens is these tokens are double-sided, and this is pollution and the other side is nuclear. This is bad. It's harder to get rid of because over the course of time, in this case, if I went here, I could spend 1 science, for example, and get rid of or do 2 cleanup actions. For a cleanup action, I could get rid of one of these, or for a cleanup action, I could make a nuclear, flip it over to pollution. So to get rid of a nuclear, I have to use one cleanup to make it pollution, and then 1 cleanup to get rid of it. Well, why do I want to keep this clean? Well, over the course of the game, at the end of the game, you're going to get 1 point for each of these that is not polluted, and if you have this column clear, or up to this column, you're going to get a certain amount of points of each of those columns to clear at the end. Now you'll notice that some of these actually have some oil. Over the course of the game, you can go to places that actually drill for oil and get you 3 barrels of oil. The barrels of oil in this game are awesome components. They're big and chunky. They look awesome. They feel awesome. And this gets you 3 barrels of oil that you can use to, trade for money or other resources. And if you're going in the water, then you flip it over and you go here. This essentially is pollution as you're getting that, but these are the only 4 spots that you can do for oil. Now let's say in a future spot, I want to go here, but somebody's already gone there. What I can do is I just have to be the highest pile there. So there was a worker there. I have to place energy up to the point where I have a worker on top and I'm taller than it. Now, even if I had gone there earlier, I can outdo myself by placing an energy to make me taller, and then I can take that action. So energy can be used to take actions that other people, including yourself, have taken, but as you saw, you could also activate different built structures on your own. Now, once it's your turn and you either want to or you don't have any workers left or energy to do anything, you'll need to reclaim all your workers, and that's sort of you go into a generation. So what you do is you pull back all your workers and all your energy from the board and from your structures. You would then get rid of all the energy that you have, because energy goes away at the end of every round and you recreate it each round. At that point, if you have barrels of oil, up to 4, you can essentially gain 1 temporary petroleum dye to help you get more energy. So this brown barrel of oil goes away and I get a brown petroleum dice. This gets added to your dice pool of all the other dice that you may have. And by the way, again, dice are 2 points at the end for each one that you have. You then are going to roll any of the dice that you want to roll. You're not forced to, but remember this one is only temporary for this round, so you might as well roll it. But let's say we had these 3 dice here. This table actually shows you what these dice, how much energy each of them shows. The 2, 3, 4, 5 on the green dice, only 1 energy. The blue dice is 2 energy, 2 energy, 2 energy, 3 energy. However, these ones have a lot more. These ones will basically pollute, and then nuclear. So this one has the most pollution but the most energy, and this is the green energy, so it's really easy, and hydro energy, which is the clean and gives you 2 energy each. So you would roll these dice. You would add up all the energy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would actually get 6 energy to spend next turn. I would put them right here, but then I look at what die has the highest number on it. It's this one. If it's tied, you get to decide which one is the die. In this case, it's petroleum, which means essentially we're going to add pollution. So again, from the pollution track, I'd take this and I'd have to add it. If this one was the highest, it would be nuclear, which again is harder to get rid of. And the green die never has any pollution. So you can go for like a real clean, but not as much energy, or you go for a lot of energy and have a lot of pollution, and then try to deal with trying to get rid of some of that later. Well, let's look at some of the other things you can do. You can go here and get more dice. You spend resources to get a green die, or a blue die. And remember, you can only have 1 blue die in the game, or you get a cold die or a nuclear die, and that's how you get more dice in the game. Now over here are achievements. This is a cool thing. When you generate, meaning you're pulling back all your workers, if you have a combination of 2 or more workers and energy, so it could be like 2 workers, it could be a worker and energy. If you have this much left on your board when you generate, meaning pull all your workers back, you actually get to take one of these. So if you do it early, or you have a lot left over, you get to take any one of these achievements. You can have a maximum of 5 of them over the game. This essentially said, hey, 1 point per barrel, or 1 point per nuclear. So this actually like gives you points for being nuclear. So you might want to go heavy pollution style there and get a lot of energy. And 1 point for every 2 coins. And these are different throughout the game. As soon as someone takes one, another one comes out. But the maximum points you can get from any of these is 5. In the commerce, you can get money, or take a lot of money and let the other people also have some money. You can trade 3 barrels of oil at a time for money, or money for 3 barrels of oil at a time, depending on the cost shown in that market that I showed you earlier. You can do an infinite amount of trading between these types of resources. And of course, you can go buy cars, which do all sorts of other different things in that right. And in the industry market, you're either getting iron, or you're getting an oil rig, which automatically gets you 3 barrels of oil, or you're taking oil and turning it into the plastic, and the science, but also some pollution. And of course, going here allows you to get cards, and these will be different every time. But as you can see, you do different things, like plastic gives you a cleanup. This could be a plastic or an iron, or you could take a barrel of oil and 2 plastics. But also remembering some of them give you pollution, but they all give you points at the end of the game, and my costs are up at the top. These ones always need iron, the government ones always need science, and the other ones, the commerce, needs plastics. Now, we started as a nation, and regardless of where you go on the board, you can always activate this with a worker or an energy. And once you go there, you'd spend a science and $2, and you'd move up 1 on the United Nations track. United Nations essentially just gives you points at the end of the game. There can be more than 1 person in the lead, but there can only be 1 player that gets to the end, and whoever is the leader gets 3-point bonus. So this player would get 20 points of United Nations at the end of the game if that's where they were. Now, once the last pollution of each stack goes, something happens. Number 1, of course, now we're in the different pricing for the oil, but we open up this global impact card. So let's look at what one of these are. And so these ones have different things. Number one, they're always going to pollute one of your 3 rows. So this one's forest. Everyone would have to pollute one of their forest row pieces on the rows. This refreshes one of the entire markets. So this one is going to refresh the commerce market. And so all those cards would get put away and new ones would come out. Here also gives you a special thing. So everyone will get 2 coins and then you can trade as if you were on that spot. And this would be active. Basically, this would just do its thing. Sometimes you have ongoing effects until the next one comes. After the first 3 are gone, you'll notice it turns red. These will be the last 3, and these ones usually are even worse. So this one, hey, you got to pollute your sky. You get to refresh the industry, and then each player takes 2 pollution tokens from the supply and chooses 1 row. So you're adding more pollution. And these things do all different things, but of course, as I showed you earlier, there's ways that you can actually look at some of the cards before they come up. The game continues until the last pollution is gone. Everyone gets 1 more turn, and then we do final scoring. And you'll get points at that point for all the structures. You'd get 2 points for all your dice. You'd get points depending on how well you did on your achievements, with a max of 5 for each one. You'd gain 1 point for each of the open spots and points for open columns, and then you'd have the winner. Tiebreaker is basically the most total resources. Money divided by 2, plastic, steel, science, oil, all that sort of stuff. That's how you play Manhattan Project, Energy Empire. All right, let's start off by putting this in perspective. Manhattan Project is a worker placement game, the original one, that when I did my top 100 games of all time a couple years ago, it made my top 10 games of all time. That is just astronomically high on my list. And I want to give you this review through that perspective because I absolutely love that game to death. Now, this game's not even designed by the original designer. It's designed by a couple other people. But the interesting thing about it is it used some of the mechanisms that made Manhattan Project popular, which was placing the workers out on your turn and being able to do a bunch of things like place on the main board and then a bunch on your own board, or then reclaiming all your workers at once, and there's some timing mechanism with that. And it kept that main, that main mechanism, kept some of the, sort of the graphic arts of the workers and stuff like that. Now, after that, it's really very different game. But I will say it is a very well done game. Let me kind of compare and contrast the differences. In this game, you're really dealing with a lot of different resources, a lot of different tracks. You're going to go down that, you're going to stay in the government market or the commerce market or the industry market. And those ones, deal with science or iron and plastics. So it kind of helps you like focus on one thing, but there's a lot more resources in this game. In the original Manhattan Project, you're getting things and you're getting yellow cake to turn into uranium or plutonium, and then you turn those into bombs. And everyone's sort of doing that same thing, just who can do it craftier, faster, more efficient, and that game was a race. You never knew it was going to end. This is a lot more open. I feel like this is a lot more sandboxy. I feel like you have a lot more flexibility. I feel like there's this game has more individual strategies that you can go down. Adding those nations at the beginning of the game gives you that sort of individualistic of what you're going to use to move up the nation track. So you're probably going to specialize in those goods, which pushes you down a certain track, but you don't have to go down that track. You can go somewhere else too. But I like how the different resources do different things, and there's just so much to think about here. I think this game is more thinky than the original Manhattan Project. I think there's more going on, but that's a good thing, I think, for a lot of people. It really impressed me of how everything interlocks together. Do you want to go for, the low pollution, low energy, not get a whole lot of energy, but, you're doing well on pollution, or go the other route where you can go like heavy pollution. The last game we played, someone was going heavy pollution right off the bat, someone was going about medium, and I decided, I'm just going to go totally light. I only ended up with 1 piece of pollution on my property at the end, and all I had was green and blue dice. And for most of the game, I felt like my engine didn't get going as much because I didn't have as much energy, but at the same time I wasn't causing as much pollution. I was able to move up on the nations track, and the games it was really close. I ended up losing, but just by a few points. It was really close. I thought that was awesome how you can have 2 completely different strategies and one in the middle, and all of them come out close to each other. Very interesting. So, if you like worker placement style games, by the way, the idea of this whole claiming your workers, rolling the dice, get the energy, you can decide which ones you want, really cool. Unbelievable. This game is really good. So if you liked Manhattan Project at all, but you didn't like, say, the airplanes, the bombing, the espionage of going into other people's building and messing with people, if you didn't like that it was a race, if you didn't like that there was a hidden information there, if you didn't like that everyone was sort of doing the same thing, but you liked the idea of that game, you're most likely you are going to like this one better, a lot better. The 2 people that I played it with last liked it better than the original Manhattan Project because of those reasons. Now, I'm one that in the original Manhattan Project, I didn't mind the bombing. I almost never used it anyway because I always thought it was better to, why bomb their building? I should just use it. And I like to espionage and steal their stuff. And so that's it. And I liked the aspect of it ending abruptly and having it secret and feeling like a race. So for me, I really like Energy Empire. I think it's amazing. I think it did great things to add to the Manhattan Project line. For me, I personally like the original Manhattan Project better because of those reasons, but I can see that a lot of people are probably going to like this one better because of those reasons. Regardless, it's amazing. It's very thinky, a lot to think about, a lot of different avenues to go. Excellent job. I can highly recommend it, and that's Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for backing me on Kickstarter, making this season become a reality. I'd like to especially thank those here that have backed me at the credit level. Now, these video reviews are also available by audio on our podcast. It's the intros and the final thoughts on GameBoyGeek.com. Click podcast.